Good evening, everybody. I'm Dave Karger from Turner Classic Movies. Thank you very much. And it's an absolute pleasure for me to be here with Bernie Taupin, Andrew Watt, Brandi Carlile, and Elton John. And many congratulations on this fantastic record and a fascinating mini documentary, and kudos to everybody who worked on that. Elton, I have to start with you because I've known you now for 20 years plus. You have never once told me to f*** off.
No, Dave, there's never been a time and a place for it. But when you're in a studio and trying to come to grips with the fact that you want to make a great record, but you can't always predict what's going to happen. And we went in with no songs, 4 of us, no plan, and just thought, right, this is the meeting of the minds and talent. Let's get on with it. But unfortunately, I was not in a great shape. I was tired. I was exhausted, but more than anything, I had so much doubt about my ability to come through with what we needed to come through with. And that led to a lot of aggression and bad behavior at the beginning of the album. And in a way, it was necessary for me to do that because I never had so much doubt and apprehension before I started the project. But after a while, after I quit the album about 2 or 3 times, and then thinking, I can't quit the album because there are 3 other people that I love so much. This is 4 of us. And I've never done anything like this before. So eventually, I got a lyric about Laura Nero, who is one of my idols. And it just fell into place, this song. And it was like she was inhabiting me when I was writing it. And I just felt, once we did that, and then we did Little Richard's Bible and Swing for the Fences, 3 up-tempo songs that people think, why they started the album with 3 up-tempo songs? They're Americana songwriters, and no, that's what I wanted. I wanted energy. And what happened was that my bad behavior and my angst brought the energy finally, and it brought great energy and powerful energy. And at the end of the album, When This Old World Is Done With Me, and I cried. I think it was all the pent-up emotion that I was carrying and the pressure that I was feeling to come up with a decent record, a different record from the ones that I'd been making. And it all worked out brilliantly at the end, thanks to these 3 people who stood by me. And presented me with the most wonderful songs and wonderful kindness. And that's really what happened. I think I told everyone to f*** off about 10 times. I ripped up her lyrics. I threw my iPad on the floor. But it was because I was frustrated with my inability to come up with something good. And then when I did, it all fell into place. There you go.
Yes, it did. I mean, Brandi, when he says off Brandi, it makes me laugh so hard. What was your reaction when you saw that footage?
I mean...
You weren't even there, like, and he said off Brandi.
No, but, things like that got thrown around, and I just thought to myself, this is such a wild experience, and this man, like, his heart is right on his sleeve, and what he thinks comes out of his mouth. There's, like, no filter. And the thing that is so musical about that is so does the music. The music comes out of his brain in through his hands. And because nothing stops it, because he doesn't censor himself, that's why there's an Elton John. That's why you have these songs for the last 50 years. It's because of that. So I wouldn't change anything about what he does.
What conversations did you guys have when you agreed to do this? Because when Elton told me you guys are doing this, I immediately thought of Alison Krauss and Robert Plant and that great record.
That was what he first said. Elton first goes, he's like, I want to make a record with you and Andrew and Bernie. And he goes, it could be like Alison Krauss and Robert Plant. And I was like, okay, yeah, like, I'm definitely down. And then he calls a few days later and he's like, no, it's like the Eurythmics. We're going to be like the Eurythmics. And I was like, great, I love the Eurythmics. Great, let's be the Eurythmics. And then he calls back, he goes, no, we're going to keep the electronic, like the beats from the Eurythmics, but we're going to be like Patsy Cline and Buddy Holly. And I'm like, this is just getting better. And then he calls one day and he goes, no, we're going to be us. Let's just be us. But let's not do what people expect of us. He's so brilliant, just a visionary, you know.
Andrew, I came away from watching this mini documentary with such an off-the-charts appreciation for you and
Preach.
of you, because
Thank you.
obviously not only do you have to have the musical skill that you have, but this process, it required you to be basically a movie director, a cheerleader, a therapist. I mean, you were all of these things. What was going through your head as you were leading this whole experience?
I think on day 2, Brandi just took me by the shoulder and said, "How the f are you not on a plane right now?" You know, it was a very intense process, but I just tried to remind myself that anything said to me or thrown at me in my direction was just, a literal genius frustrated with himself and just trying to get to the finish line, just trying to get to something that he was proud of. And we were just all there to support that.
Clearly.
I think it's very kind of you to say that, but also, when I left the studio, Andrew was going on the phone to David, "What the f going on here? What is wrong with him? He's so impatient." There was genuine, he was going through hell with me, and so was everybody else. So I think he's trying to sugarcoat it. It wasn't easy.
And then Elton would turn up the next day with a piece of jewelry for Andrew or something. There you go, darling boy.
Bernie, from your point of view, how did you embrace how different this process was? I think of you writing these cinematic lyrics, by yourself and off in your own world, but in this case, it did require this fascinating collaboration.
Well, obviously, I was definitely off in my own world because this guy, he said, "You got to go somewhere else and work on material while I work with them." But this is all about these two guys and this guy. I was just the guy on the sidelines that was going, "Yeah, I've seen this before. I've seen the tantrums. I've seen, the things that go down." And I don't know if we've talked about this, but there was a wonderful moment in the first couple of days that we were recording. And we'd gone through the first day, and we came back the second day, and Andrew played some stuff, and Elton just basically, I could see this look in his eye that was, "I don't know if I can get through this." And he just sort of went, "No, I can't do this," and walked out of the studio. And there was this look of fear in Brandi's eye that I just looked at her and said, "Don't worry, he's done that before." And she went, "Really?" And I went, "Yeah, it's going to be okay." And if it wasn't for this guy here, I don't think there's any producer that we've ever worked with from the early days of Gus Dudgeon, where it was a lot easier, but it's got harder. And this guy pushed Elton and stood up to him more than anybody I've ever seen in the studio. So I give him tremendous credit. The same way as I give Brandi. I was just the guy on the sideline who threw some stuff on the wall and saw if it stuck. So I give it all to these guys.
Elton, for people who are not aware, Andrew worked with you on much of the Lockdown Sessions record that you did, including the duet that you did with Brandi. What was the point where you, in your working relationship with Andrew, said, "Oh, this is my guy"? Because you've been telling me about him for years.
I think when I did an Ozzy Osbourne track, Ordinary Man, when he came down to Atlanta the first time I ever met him. And I really liked him. And then I worked with him in London on the Miley Cyrus Metallica thing, remotely on Nothing Else Matters. And I really got to like him then even more. And then when COVID hit, I did some tracks with other people, and then I said to Andrew, "I'm coming over to LA, let's do some tracks." And so we did Brandi, we did Stevie Nicks, we did Stevie Wonder, oh my God, and we did Nicki Minaj and Young Thug, and we did Eddie Vedder, which is a great selection of people. And we just laugh all the time, and I've never met anyone who is on the same page as me at this particular moment in my life, because I need pushing. I'm 78 years of age. I need pushing. I need to move forward. And to go back to that second day when we were in the studio, we'd recorded a song, and Andrew was in the studio till 5 o'clock in the morning, and we all came in the next day, and Andrew played the song, and I went, I hate it. I didn't hate the song. I hated the fact that it sounded like something I would have done 5 years ago. And that's not what I wanted to do. And Brandi, I thought, what's she going to think? And what did you think? You thought I was being honest?
I wanted to honor that you said that. I think a lot of the tirades and the things that we poke fun at a little bit are the reason why you're hearing the music you're hearing on this album, is because if nobody had been brave enough in that moment to say, I hate it, that's the record we were going to continue making.
Yeah.
So it's that's the thing that no one else can quite tap into, is being able to act on impulse, being able to be reactive. It's a really musical way to be. And it saved us making something formulaic, and it created something really, really exciting. So there's a real upside to those impulse reactions that come from you.
If I didn't have those reactions, this album would have happened the way it has happened.
It's true.
And let's just go back to the lyrics. I mean, the lyrics on this album are just superb. Bernie Taupin's 3 lyrics on this record, apart from a couple of things he worked with on Brandi's, are some of the greatest lyrics he's ever written. He wrote a song about Laura Nyro, who I loved and he loved, and I remember sitting on the floor with him, looking at Eli in the 13th Confession, and thinking, who is this woman? And then Little Richard. And then the song which floored me, When This Old World, which I think is as much about him as it is about me, and it's about us, as two people who have loved each other for so long. And, they're 3 of the finest lyrics he's ever come up with. And he gets me totally. Laura Nyro, Little Richard, my death, his death, our death, whatever. It was just...
Let's hope we go out together.
Yeah. It'll be Thelma and Louise. There you go.
That can be arranged.
I just want to add something for a second. Bernie was just, talking to... for a second, I'm listening to him. I don't know if I ever got to tell you this, but you operated with such grace on this record, and you propelled Brandi to write these lyrics and push her forward, and taught her how to put the lyrics in front of Elton, and gave her your process. And that is such a thing that so many people would not be able to do, and let someone else into. And it was pretty much the most beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, you're not going to want to hear it. You're not going to want us to sit here and praise you in the way that we feel compelled to do, but there's not a world in which I would have ever written a song without your lyrics, Bernie. And not just that, but knowing how to write lyrics, it comes from you. It comes from your ethos, like the ability to write a song that's about you and your world, like Tiny Dancer, but then to write a song about Elton and Elton's world, like Someone Saved My Life Tonight or Made in England. It's an incredible thing to be able to be biographical and autobiographical and fantastical. That's the kind of poet you are. So I won't bother you anymore with it. That's always with me.
And for example, The Rose of Laura Nyro, the lyrics in that, there's so many things that reference Laura Nyro that you wouldn't normally necessarily, but he's so brilliant at that.
If I can leave now.
No. I'm not done with you, Bernie, because I am curious. I mean, you guys write in these famous metaphorical 2 rooms where you write the lyrics and then give them to Elton. So you're not there when the songs are being written. You're not there when he sees it for the first time. Of course, he gives you feedback when you speak. But what was it like for you to see the footage of him reacting to your lyric, When This Old World Is Done With Me?
Okay, that's kind of interesting. I mean, I was definitely affected by it. I'm glad that it transcribed to him the way that I originally put it. But the thing is, I think you have to go back to what Andrew had tried to encourage me to do in this album, which was not to be in the studio, not to be a part of the recording process, which I've been so used to in the past. And I'm kind of glad he did it, because I hate studios. I don't like being in them. And the only reason I've been in them in the past was because I felt Elton wanted me to be there. But Andrew really encouraged me to just go and be in my apartment in LA that I have there and just work on stuff. And I would grind out things all day, and I'd send them to them in the studio as they were working. And literally they go, not where we're going, not where we're heading. And one day I just came up with this title. And I think I came up with the title before I even knew what I wanted to say in it. I just thought the title was a great title. And then suddenly it occurred to me that it related probably to both Elton and I. And I sat down and I literally wrote it, in maybe, within an hour, going back and making changes on it. And I knew it would work. I knew it was something that was effective, and I knew it was something that he would relate to. And I know the way that Elton works, because I know that he looks at things that he puts up on the piano when he's writing, and he doesn't really realize where they're going at first. Mm-hmm. And he goes through them, and he gets to certain points, and he goes, okay, now I get it. Yeah. And luckily, that was how it sort of kind of related to him. And when I saw that footage of him in the studio kind of suddenly going, oh, I get this, that was very effective to me and very emotional. But it's not something that's new. It's something that's always happened with us. Elton has always kind of ultimately found out what a lyric is about sometime later on in our careers.
Could be hours, could be days.
I mean, I not to belabor, but I actually have this story about Elton being on the stage early on in our career and coming over to me on the side of the stage in the middle of a song and saying, I just realized what this song's about.
What song?
I don't know what it was. I
it?
still to this day don't know, but I never forget that.
It wasn't Crocodile Rock, I know that.
Or Take Me to the Pilot, because no
No.
one still
No
knows
one knows
what
what
that
that
one's
fucking song's about, or Grace Seal.
Even I don't know what that song's about.
Brandi, you, like myself, spent so much time in your childhood and young adulthood listening lovingly to Elton and Bernie's music. Did you ever imagine in your head what your voices would sound like duetting? And how do they sound compared to how you imagined them?
I had a realization somewhere like around halfway through the record when I would lay down a vocal prior to Elton. I know he had a hard time matching up to my phrasing, but I can't see why, because it's actually his phrasing. I think if you some people got involved and maybe threw a stick in the spokes like Joni and maybe messed it up, but if you pitch down my voice into Elton's range, it would sound like him. I was singing lines in like Never Too Late where I'm like, don't let it cross your mind, and I'm like, I'm doing that, but that's Elton's voice, in a female form. So I knew our voices would blend. When I look at his face and we're singing, I know him so well. I know what he's going to do before he does it. So I just stare at him like a creep, but our harmonies are so tight because I really know him like in my soul,
If I lived an easy life, would I still choose you? Would I fall on the same knife? Now, I think that's pretty easy to do. But she does. If I lived an easy life, would I still choose you? Would I fall on the same knife?
That's Joni.
Could I get that? No. If I choose you, would I still fall on the same knife? No,
never be
same
over it.
knife. And I was so enraged. I think that's when I ripped up the lyrics. I mean, it's so hard to sing. I had the same problem with John Lennon when I did Whatever Gets You Through the Night. Nobody sings the same as you do. And so you have to, but her phrasing, she thinks is like mine. It's not, it's her phrasing. And so it should be. But it was, when you're singing harmonies to someone, I've never really done that before for a whole album. And I grew to love it. It was, Andrew and her would sit by me and go, no, this is the line, and I'd finally get it. And when I'd finally got it and it came together, it was so beautiful. Our voices go beautifully together. I mean, I can't think of anyone I could sing with that could sound as good as you. And so I had trouble phrasing because she would put her voice down straight away, and then I would come in and go, hell. Bloody cow. It was, but it was.
You'll never be over this.
Huh?
You're never going to be over this phrasing issue.
No, but it was fun. I finally got it, and when I finally got it, it was wonderful. But it was challenging for me, and because I couldn't get it, I was getting angrier and angrier at myself because I'm used to doing things very quickly.
Right.
But they would be sitting there. I'd be at the mic, and they'd be sitting there, go. Nah. I felt like I was in kindergarten again. Listen, I'm making a joke about it. It was an absolute pleasure to do this. I mean, when you're working with a great artist, and she is a great artist, believe you me.
Yes.
I couldn't think of anybody I'd want to do an album with other than her because I've always been impressed with her. And live, when she did the Joni Mitchell Blue album at the Disney Hall, I was sitting in the audience with Joni, and I said, she got a teleprompter? I'm like, no. That is the bravest thing I've ever done. I wouldn't do it without a. She did the whole thing in front of Joni Mitchell, and it was incredible. She's got balls of steel. Yeah, she does. And that's why I love her. She wants to push herself more and more and more. And there's no point in looking back to albums she's done. There's no point in me looking back to albums I've done. It's what we're going to do next. And that's what she's done. She's done recording. She's making her own album. And it's going to be fantastic. I've already heard some things. This is the chance for her to be a global act instead of a very brilliant American act.
Who had to tape the lyric sheet back together? Andrew.
This guy.
That's how you earn your money.
There was the printer was so far from where we were, and as you could see, this guy's the most impatient person in the world. So after he ripped up the lyrics and he's like, I'm done, he's like, all right, fine, I'll do it. Where are the lyrics? And ripped them. So I'm just putting them back together in like one thing so I can read them to him line by line. It was absolutely
Andrew,
insane.
if I can ask you a little bit more of an abstract question, how do you avail yourself with the technology in the music world since the early 1970s, but still make this sound like a classic early 1970s amazing
question.
album?
Well, as you see, this album was not recorded with any click tracks. This album was recorded to human feel, to the feel of Elton John and Brandi Carlile and the musicians in the room. And that's what's so great about these guys' music. That's what we love. It gets faster, it slows down, they change tempo, they change time signature, they push and pull, and it's all about following Elton's piano. Yeah. So I think if you heard him to a grid and edited,
I couldn't do it.
It would be terrible.
And
honestly.
also we had Chad Smith on drums, who's unbelievable. Yes. We had Pino Palladino on bass, who's unbelievable. And we had Josh Klinghoffer on keyboards, who's unbelievable. So, I mean, Chad Smith's he's like a freight train. He's unbelievable, and he's so quick. All the musicians that we had are so quick. And so it wasn't learned. Once we'd written the song, they knew the song. So we only did 1 or 2 or 3 takes of anything. And so it wasn't all day doing a song. It was just, when you've got great musicians and they're human beings and they emit there's humanity instead of, I love dance music, but when you've got real musicians in a room and you're playing, there's something different about it. And it's just, that's what this album's about. Andrew was 100% right.
Also, I had, as you saw, the placement of Elton was on purpose. I put him in the closet so that I could keep him in there when I needed to like get information from him, so, which like writing down his chord
Not a
charts.
place he's lived in for long.
What's that?
No one's putting Elton John in the closet.
Except for me. No. I had to have him like in this booth basically so that he couldn't run out of the studio. And I'd literally be, after he'd finished the song, I'm like, okay, what are the chords? What are the chords? It's E with a B in the bass. It's A with a B flat. Like just read them to me one by one, because without you can't follow what he's
You can't
doing.
follow what he does. As long as I've loved Elton John, I know every single song. I know every single drum fill, but I cannot cover Elton John songs. I've been able to cover maybe 3 because the chords are too complicated for me to play. My fingers just don't bend that way. There's always notes in the bass. That's what it is.
It's the moving bass notes,
Well-
and only he can do it.
Well,
There's
when
no
you
one
s-
else in the world that can.
When you see him creating the "Who Believes in Angels" chorus, it reminded me of like the end of Healing Hands with the bass too, and to be there.
For the healing ahead,
Nar, 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 nar.
there's a light
Yeah.
where the darkness ends.
But that must have been a super magical moment to be there to witness that. That's just so thrilling as a finished product too. Okay, let me get to some of these great questions that you all ask. Thank you, Doug Headings, for this great question for Elton and Brandi. What is each of your favorite characteristic of the other?
My favorite character of Brandi is her talent, her kindness, and her friendship. I am so, from the first day I met her, I knew we would be friends for life. There's nothing about this woman I do not like. She's the most positive spirit, full of love and kindness and ambition and drive. And there's nothing, I mean, I just love every single thing about her. But there you go.
Oh, thank you, Elton. I love you too. There's so many things I love about this guy, and I don't have time to go through them all, but I do think like, my favorite characteristic of yours is that you can really laugh at yourself. You don't take yourself too seriously, which is why you're so brilliant, because you allow yourself to live on impulse. You don't dwell in the past, you think outside yourself, and you are always concerned with other people, how you can help, how you can get in somebody else's life and help them get sober, help them enhance their talent, help them move forward in the world. You live outside of yourself in the most profound way, and you can really have a giggle at yourself, which I just think is so intelligent. Like, I can't take that. I'm easily embarrassed and a bit rigid, and I really envy and admire that in you.
Well, thank you. Being as ridiculous as I am, you have to giggle. I mean, you have no option.
Here's a question. I'm going to give this one to Andrew. This is from Frankie, who says, what was the most rewarding and most challenging thing about making this album in just 20 days? And the postscript, queer families rule.
I think a challenge for me in my head, I didn't sleep much during this process, was how to keep their two voices always interesting and not doing the same thing. Brandi takes the top harmony, Elton takes the bottom harmony. Like, just use their voices together sometimes in unison and finding, so it's different between each song. There's one song that's just Brandi, there's one song that's just Elton. They give each other that moment on the album. So just keeping it always interesting and not the same. And these guys were so amazing at not giving up and matching each other's phrasing and working through it till it was right. And as, impatient as Elton got, you never gave up.
No, you work so hard.
Well, I think one of the things that was so important is that it didn't matter who was singing the first line of the song, or who had the first verse or the second verse or whatever. It was what was suited to the song.
Yes.
And this was a true collaboration. This wasn't me doing one line, her doing the other line. I didn't want to do a duet record like that. It wasn't Steve and Edie. Although I do like Steve and Edie, in case I get cancelled. But it was, leave your ego on the floor. When it comes to it, who's got the best voice for this part? Yeah. And that really is why it worked. And there were never any arguments about, well, I should be doing this or anything. Nothing like that. Nothing.
I want to give this question. Oh, go ahead.
Just add really quick. Brandi is fearless. She is fearless. And even with all of this, commotion, craziness happening, she'd come in every day, wipe it off, and come in with another lyric or another idea or something positive. Even when we were tired, she was always this positive, bright light in the studio. And she led us. She led all of us.
Well, she was staying next door to us with Catherine and girls, and so we'd have breakfast together every morning. So that was really good. It kind of go back to the Honky Chateau days, when Bernie and I would be at the chateau in Deraville, and Bernie would be sitting there typing something. I'd sit at the electric piano after my breakfast writing the song. The band would come down and pick up their instruments, and the song would be done, and we'd walk across the courtyard and it'd be recorded. That kind of informality was great to start the day. I always saw her at breakfast, and then I tried to sort of explain what kind of state I was in. But she saw that, and she adapted herself accordingly. I mean, A Little Light is a prime example. Well, I was in such a terrible state, and she said, listen, let's write something positive instead of writing something negative. What we do is bring people together with our music, is use our talent to make people a little happier, and she was absolutely right on the mark.
I love the moment at the end of the documentary where the phrase is repeated, I felt. We all felt, and we all feel because of what you all were able to achieve. So I thank you all. I congratulate you all. I thank you all for being here.
Yes, thank you so much,
And
you
help
guys,
me
for
thank
coming.
Elton John, Brandi Carlile, Andrew Watt, and Bernie Taupin.
Don't need to love so hard. You don't have to wear a tie. Sometimes honest is being caught inside a lie. And I've been there. I've been there. If I lived an easy life, would I still choose you? Would I fall on the same knife? A rodeo queen breathing fire into the night. I have been there.